there's a much bigger threat to the men in blue. That's him! Kill the bastard with the video camera! Get him!
Hey guys, how's everybody doing today? It's Rogue Nation, and today we're having a discussion with just a guy here, and we're going to be talking about the complaint process, filing complaints, what needs to be done, how to do it correctly so that we get some kind of closure to the issues that we're complaining about. And just a guy reached out to me, and he has some great ideals, and we're going to be incorporating his complaint that he filed at the end of the video so you can see how he did it. I don't think we'll include screenshots of all the pages, just a couple of them, and then I'll be able to link, or you folks can email me for a copy of the complaint so that way you folks can see it. So right now I'm going to pass it over to just a guy so he can introduce himself to everybody, and then we'll get started.
Thanks, Rogue. How you doing, everybody? I'm just a guy having fun. That's my YouTube channel. I'm a private investigator of over 30 years. I've worked with government, worked with law enforcement. I've worked in the corporate sector as a corporate investigator. I've also had some challenges with government. My start with that came in about 2018 when my son was starting to be shot and killed in school. I've done a whole video on that. We ended up getting a law changed on that. So I fought really hard for about 18 months to get a law changed in here in Arizona to help prevent school violence. I encourage you to check that out. But then I was assaulted by a cop after that. And wasn't the most dramatic assault ever, but he placed his hands on me, and I won't stand for it. And really what I reached out to Rogue was twofold. I wanted to talk about my perspective on how I went about filing a complaint, how to organize it so that law enforcement can understand it and the courts can understand it should you decide to take it that route as well. So that's why I reached out to Rogue, and I wanted to have a discussion about it, and hopefully we could share some information. Not that my way is the right way, but I think I got some stuff to share.
Absolutely. And you said you had some questions that you wanted to go over with me? Did you want to do those now, or did you...
Well, what I really wanted to start out, you want to start out with the complaint first or the notice of claim?
Let's start out with the complaint first, and then
okay.
We could move to the notice of claim.
Okay. I made some bullet points here, and what I want to talk about, should we always file a complaint every time? What do you think, Rogue? If you feel your rights were violated, whether it's very minor or the guy was just a jerk, should we file a complaint every time?
I mean, if your rights are violated, I would say absolutely. To try to get some, I don't want to say retribution, but try to get some resolve to that issue, and hopefully prevent other people from going through that same issue. Now, if somebody's just, hurt because the guy's being a jerk, I don't really do that. Everybody has a bad day. So if and you don't know what's going on in other people's lives, right?
Right.
So we want to be cautious that we're not out there just trying to get people in trouble that aren't really troublesome themselves, I guess you could say. Now if it's a tyrant that's out there violating your right, absolutely file a complaint. If some guy's just an asshole, doesn't violate your rights, but he's just an asshole, maybe that's an off day for him. So we should always give people the benefit of the doubt, and people do deserve second chances. I'm an ex-felon. When I was a kid, I was a troublesome kid, but people gave me a second chance, and I took it and ran with it and did good with my life. And I think the same could be said for everybody. And sometimes just showing compassion sometimes in instances is enough to make people understand that, hey, maybe my actions weren't weren't the right actions. But if you're definitely out there violating people's rights, then there definitely needs to be some kind of accountability. Um, and that's where I draw the line. And I'll even go a little bit even further. A lot of people notice in my audits sometimes that my rights are violated, right? And sometimes I sue, and sometimes I don't sue. And people ask me, say, well, why did you sue on this one and not that one? And when you're out there auditing, your rights are going to get violated daily, right? Sometimes multiple times in a day. And there's just not enough time in the day to file all these complaints, file all these lawsuits. So myself, what I do is I take the most egregious ones and I target those for actions, right? Like, for example, the chief deputy in Barnville who got every law wrong. That guy, he earned himself a lawsuit. You know, his his violation of my rights were so egregious that it would weigh on my soul if I didn't, follow that up. In other instances, they may have unlawfully detained me, or they may have even trespassed me out of a building. But again, that didn't rise in my mind to a level as egregious as like the deputy in Barnville or those idiots out there in Pearl, Mississippi that kicked me out of the health department. Those guys also earn themselves a lawsuit and they'll get filed on. But I found that a lot of times revisits is all that need to take place because I know a lot of people think that everybody knows the law and they're just ignoring it, and that's why these situations occur. But a lot of times that's not the case. A lot of times these people just they don't know the law, and once this situation happens, which has never happened before to them, and they get with their higher ups and they talk with their husband or their wives when they're at home, or they start looking around on the internet, and they come to find out that this
You
stuff
know,
is legal.
and that's one of the points that I had in here is that people really overlook, right? Is that there's a couple of different forms of you can go the formal complaint process, right? And I think there should be a term for it, but we can go the internet complaint process. Like, hey, the internet's a wonderful thing. The internet's a great way to get justice. And the way I like to say it is justice doesn't always come through the system. Sometimes it comes one view at a time. And we see a lot of officers that, the system didn't necessarily handle it, but the internet will take care of it. Right.
Absolutely.
The internet will make the community aware of that particular officer and how to deal with him in the future. So I always want to remind people of that. You may not get that satisfaction through the system, but you can get it in other ways. There's other ways to get it.
Absolutely. And again, that's why I do my revisits. I feel my revisits are some of my best work because it shows that without having to sue these people or even file a complaint, that they can change and that we can make them change. And the way that happens is because once I release the video, my subscribers start pouring in with calls and emails and stuff like that, letting these people know, hey, you guys have messed up. Now, you may not think you messed up and you may not want to believe you messed up, but you messed up. And Rogue's going to be back. And
Right.
if this kind of behavior continues, you'll force his hand. That's how I got into all these health departments this last year, was because I was just tired of them kicking me out. I'd been kicked out of like 3 or 4. I was like, man, these lawsuits are piling up. Do I want to file all these lawsuits, or do I want to go, higher up? So I emailed the inspector general here in Florida for the health department, and I told him straight up, I said, listen, I said, I'm allowed to be in your buildings. I'm allowed to record in the public areas. I said, and recently some of your offices have violated my rights. I said, moving forward, I said, we're going to forget about what's happening. I said, moving forward, if this ever happens again, I will litigate. And ever since that time, every health department I went into, they've been compliant. And if they haven't been
Amazing how that
compliant,
works.
yeah, if they haven't been compliant right off the bat, they made a call and they came into compliance.
Right.
So, again, sometimes all it takes is just letting them know that, we understand what the deal is, and we will, take it to that next level if need be. But again, in a lot of these instances, like let's take Dothan for example. Dothan, Alabama. One of the worst days I've had auditing. Every single building was just a nightmare. We were put in handcuffs for an hour. The very first building we went to, me and Bad Cop No Donut, and the whole day was a mess. Ending with the sheriff detaining us on the side of the road there. That was the last part of the day there. But even before I had filed the lawsuits against those instances, which I filed 2 lawsuits for that day, um, which is like a I don't know, I guess like a grand slam in baseball, right? You get two,
Trifecta.
yeah, you get 2 worthy violations in the same day from, damn near the same law enforcement agencies. But even before I had filed those lawsuits, a gentleman there in the local news station had done a story about it and had tracked down the fact that even before the lawsuits were started, that Dothan had implemented training on the First Amendment because of those instances, because of just the videos being
Yep.
released and the public outcry because of those videos. They took it upon themselves without having to be court ordered. They took
One view at a time.
Yeah, they took it upon themselves to institute that training themselves. And every time I went back to Dothan after that, I had like literally no issues at all. I even took the dude from the news agency. I think it was Channel 4 News in Dothan. Guy's name is Ken, but I took him and we did an audit together at the administration building. Him with his big old camera and me with
That's
my
awesome.
my camera. And we went into the administration building with a couple of guys. I think News Now Ninja was there, and a couple
I
other guys.
remember that.
Yeah, James Madison was there, and we had no issues. So yeah, this stuff does work. Um, change does happen. Again, it's slow going, and it's because there's very few auditors compared to the municipalities, the size of the municipalities that we have. Um, so even when we've been doing this for years, we can still go to areas, even in my state, where auditing has barely touched. Like
Hmm.
for example, I've only been to Bluntstown, Florida, one time, and that's way up there in the Panhandle. It take me like 4 or 5 hours to get there, so it's not something I go and can visit regularly. Um,
And the one thing I don't hear discussed a lot in the community is that we always see people go in and record kind of as an act of, civil protest, exercising the First Amendment. But by auditors going in and doing that, it allows individuals like Joe Citizen to be able to go in there and just record because the tax guy lied to them last time, and they don't trust him. So they want to just record their conversation, not to necessarily post it on YouTube, but to CYA themselves. And that's more of the purpose for me was when I was investigating the schools. I wasn't doing it to make post it on YouTube or anything. I was doing it to capture these people in lies, and I caught them in several. Um, so, and that's really kind of a lost topic, I think, in the whole thing is that it really allows Joe Blow to hold their government accountable,
that's
not just an auditor.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. People, trolls, they specifically say, oh, well, you're fighting for my right to record in a building that I don't want to record in. And I tell people that's fine. You don't have to record. You don't want to record. I said, but some people do for whatever reason. But even before auditing started, there were issues at these public buildings with the servants serving the
Mm-hmm.
citizens, and that persists to this day. And I just can't imagine not being able to record my interaction with my public servant and then having it fall to a he said, she said moment, and them always winning and me always losing,
Right.
because that's what has taken place throughout the years.
Right.
So,
When I showed my legislator, it's one thing to sit in when I was trying to get the law changed, and I sat with my legislator, and I'm telling her about how the vice principal lied to me and sat there and rolled his eyes. And it's one thing to have that conversation and tell somebody that that happened, but when you show them the video and you can see their body language and the eye rolls, it has completely different impact. And and it was just based on my experience as a private investigator that I knew I could do what I was doing. I didn't need government permission, but most people don't know that. Um, that they can just go record their government official no matter what. And it's really the power that's been given to us, or even more so codified for us by auditing, um, that I love that it's getting out.
right, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, because we all need that witness when we interact with
Right.
government. We all need
So,
that witness.
all right. So I kind of want to get into the nuts and bolts of filing the complaint.
Let's do it.
So, um, one of my big recommendations is never file a complaint the same day, the written complaint, right? Or never just go to the from where the incident happened to the station and file your complaint. And the reason behind that is I'm of the belief that you're acting on emotion over intellect, and you have an opportunity at this point, before you go in and say your piece, to gather information. And with more information, you have more power. So go home, review policy, review the video that you hopefully took, rethink things in your head. I've walked away from situations and recordings where I looked at my behavior. My behavior was such that, you know what, that situation's handled. you know,
Right.
because I played just as big a role in an incident that maybe they did. So I decided not to go in and file that formal complaint. Um, but in my case with Officer Borback, and hopefully we'll drop in some examples at the end, I wanted to talk about, just like when the police and government is trying to charge you with a crime, okay, there has to be elements of a crime. For instance, we'll use obstruction because it's fairly universal, but it's either in Arizona, it's misrepresent yourself, it's use of force, threats of force, or bribery. Those are the only four elements of obstruction. So when you write your complaint, you don't want to write very generalities. You want to attack the fact, I didn't use force, I didn't use threats of force, I didn't bribe anybody, and I didn't misrepresent myself. And then you can reference back to the case law for that, Houston v. Hill. Am I wrong on that one? Right? It's Houston v. Hill.
Yeah, Houston v. Hill's the one that says that we're allowed to verbally challenge an officer without fear of going to jail,
Right.
and use, obscene words or whatever have you.
Right. We can use whatever we want. We just can't use threats of force or use of force.
Exactly.
Right? So you have case law that supports you there, but you also have the state statute that will support you. But you need to, when you're attacking either a policy or a crime against you, you need to attack the elements of the policy, and you need to attack the elements of the crime. And you do it just like they do against you, but you need to make it easy for them. Rode, do you have anything to kind of throw in on that?
Just that it works the same way when you're filing your lawsuit, when you're filing your complaint. You want to include, step by step, how things went and at what point they violated your rights and who violated your rights. When I first started filing complaints, I didn't realize that, so I didn't separate my claims correctly. I didn't put my claims on the people that caused the claims correctly. And that's a big part of the lawsuit process, is being able to say, hey, this is when my rights were violated at this moment by this
Mhm.
gentleman doing this action, right?
Right.
So that's a big part of the complaint process. So you gotta know what rights are being violated. You can't just be like, oh yeah, my rights are violated. Well, when? What
Right.
happened? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times people come to me and they'll say, Rogue, my rights were violated here, and I'll be like, how? When? By who? You know what I mean? Like, not everything is a violation of your right. You know what I mean? Like, so we have to understand that, and like you said, we have to find out the elements of that. Um, and in my complaint form um, process over the years, I've had numerous complaints rejected, and I have a feeling it's because of exactly what you're saying. I would go in that same day, all emotional. This guy's an asshole. He violated my rights, and yada yada yada. And I wouldn't even fill out the rights violations. I would just say he violated my rights. Um, and I'd always get back unfounded and yada yada. This and that, this and that. But I think I've only had one or two complaints that have been upheld as being founded. And that again was because they were so egregious that there's no way you could deny it, even though they'll try like hell.
Right.
Um,
Right. Well, what I did in when I filed my complaint, um, I would put in. I submitted it with a copy of the video. Oh, and the other thing I want to encourage everybody to do: do all your writing of your complaints at home. Right. Have that document written out. You can go in and have a conversation with the supervisor and everything, but have your document written out. All right. So you don't have to go in and rely on your memory to write everything out on their form, right? You don't need to write it on their form. You can write your narrative out at home on a Word document, print it out, and take it in that way. But we went over this. Be specific about the elements of that policy violation. Be specific in the correlation of the action to the element, and if applicable, the location. So what I mean by that is when you put in your complaint and you submit it with your video, you're going to say, much like you're in court, at 4 minutes, 13 seconds of the video, the officer approached me and placed hands on me, placing me in fear of physical danger, right? Or physical harm. But you put in there 4:18 or whatever the timestamp is, you don't want to have to make the officer look and work to find the violation. Point it out to him. Now you've pointed out where in the video he can find it. You've written it down so he can find it. You've addressed the element of the assault. He placed you in fear of physical harm and danger. There's so much more than that, other than if you just gave him a video and said, the cop assaulted me, watch the video. It's a big difference. You did not give them an out because it's right there. There's no out for them.
right. It's so much easier to just say, yeah, I watched the video and he did nothing wrong, when in fact they never watched the video because they don't have time to go through and sit through a 45-minute video looking for this cop to violate you. So that
Right.
makes perfect sense what you're saying there. And again, this is information I think that needs to get out to the community so we could start doing these correctly and actually obtaining, some complaints in these guys' jackets.
Yeah. So additionally, under that, so you'll have in your complaint, you'll have the timestamp. You'll talk about very specifically the element of the policy or the crime you're accusing them of. You'll address that in your narrative, but right under that, what you're going to want to do is you're going to because by this time you've taken the time, you've calmed down, you've read the policy, hopefully, so that you can find out what policy violation specifically that they violated. Because by placing hands on you, most would assume that there's probably a policy violation of use of force in there too, is right? So you go into the policy, you find that policy that's addressed by that specific action of the officer, you take a screenshot of it, you place that right below your narrative, right? Now what does that do for internal affairs? They don't have to go looking for what policy they violated. You had given it to them. You did their job for you. Then under that, you place a screenshot of the law that you think they violated, or the U.S. code that you think they violated, or the case law that supports your claim. But what you've done is you're starting to eliminate any excuse step by step for each part of your complaint.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. Because like and it's not just officers. A lot of people in their daily work, they're looking for shortcuts, right? They're not looking to extend their day by having to track all this kind of stuff down. And when given the opportunity, for this officer to cut out early from work and go fishing with his buddy, or sit there and try to figure out what policy this officer violated for you, I mean, we're always going to end up on the losing end of the stick. And like you said, it puts him on the spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the policy. He violated it. It's captured on video. There's no way to say that, no, he didn't violate this policy. I mean, it's crystal clear.
Right.
So,
and you've given them the timestamp. You've given them everything else to back it up, from their own policy to the law. It's right there in your complaint. So it's so important to take your time when you're going to write an effective complaint. So do a little research before you file your complaint. I encourage everybody to start peppering in some more attorney channels into your watching along with the cop videos. It's going to help supplement your knowledge on how to question a cop. Some of those key questions that they're out there. And what you'll start to do, you probably, by watching a lot of these videos, the interaction videos, learn how cops talk, right? And you'll learn how they talk when you start reading their policies. But by watching more attorneys, you'll learn how the lawyers talk, right? You guys got to learn the game, just like they're learning the game to play against you. They've got all the advantages. So when you submit your complaint, submit it in a format, right, to be very clear and concise, that they would be familiar with. And anybody who wants a copy of the complaint, they can email me, email Rogue. I've got a copy of it on my channel. But you want to start off with a summary of the events, right? You want to do a time chronology breakdown of your summary. So, on such and such a date, this event happened. And now here's the breakdown with all your time chronology and your policy breakdowns and your laws. And then at the end, you want to ask for what you want, right? If the policy violations, it'll state in the policies, a violation of this policy can be punishable by up to, and all that kind of verbiage. Ask for it. Ask for the maximum. Ask what the department will give you, right? Closed mouth don't get fed. So don't be afraid to ask. Rogue?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I'm excited, actually, to see people using what we've discussed here and seeing some results from it, because I believe going forward that this should be the way. Just like you said, it's concise, it's logical, it makes sense to cut off that emotion in the complaint process. Because
the government's not using emotion. They're using logic and every resource they have. They're not doing this with emotion.
Right.
Emotion got him into it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the front people there, they're experiencing the emotion, but once you file that complaint, it's going to somebody who wasn't in your video, that really has no, I guess you could say, dog in the matter, stake in the matter, and they're just looking it over as they would any other complaint, and they're looking for certain things. And again, when I got a stack of complaints on my desk, yay high, um, then I'm gonna look for the most precise ones, and look for the ones that have what I need to do my job, and the rest of them are probably going to go into file 13, because I don't have time
Right.
to go through this gobbledygook of spelled words and accusations without any kind of backing document or video. You know what I mean? Because lots of people file complaints, and they do it just like you said. They get upset, they got pulled over, something happened, they go in, they file a complaint, and then
Yeah, the cop was a jerk. The cop was a jerk. The cop was a jerk. They don't give any facts. They don't ask for anything. They just say the cop was a jerk. What? Now deal with my complaint.
right, right. Yeah, he wasn't very professional. Okay, so I mean, at the most, the guy's gonna be like, "Oh, you weren't very professional. Try to do better." Oh, okay.
Right. Exactly.
It happens at every job. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Right.
Like, so, um,
Yeah. So I guess the last thing on the complaint process that I really wanted to say, and I guess we kind of covered it already, was um, you need as many allies on the inside as you can get, right? So you may not like government, you may not like police, but don't be the asshole you're there to complain about, right? If you can make friends with the lady taking your form and be nice to her or him, um, they're the gatekeeper, right? They're not the ones that did you wrong. So I'm not saying be a pushover or a bootlicker, but make allies wherever you can, right?
a-
Always start off everything fresh and nice.
absolutely, we should always strive to do that because we want people on our side. We don't want to push the public or even government away from what we're doing.
Right,
Everybody should be behind what we're doing, including people that work for the government, because when we expose corruption, when we expose people that are stealing from the government, they're only stealing from them as well as us.
right.
Um, so, and I love to tell people, while you work for government, you may feel that you have these powers, and things are always going to go your way. But once you hit retirement, the government no longer cares about you. Unless you have,
Mhm.
unless you got your coworkers still working in those same positions, you pretty much have no power at all. You're just back to being a normal citizen. And there's been many instances of police officers, of government workers that have retired or done this or done that, only to find themselves abused by the very system that they helped set up to abuse people.
We've seen
You
how
know,
many times have we seen it? I mean, we see it all the time. You
all the
know,
time, all the time. My favorite story is about that fire captain who retired after 30 years, and the city mismanaged their budget, so his pension was out the window, and he ended up freezing to death because he couldn't afford heat in his apartment.
hmm
But I mean, that's just one of many. I mean, anybody could go and look online and find many examples, um, of that, same thing. And of course, there's always going to be naysayers that are like, "Oh, they're just disgruntled employees." But I mean, we have to look at these instances, and take them, and for what they are, and realize what they are. If the government violates the public now, when you stop being a government worker, you're going to be in that pool of people that the
hmm
government violate. It's common sense,
Yep.
right? So I mean, unless you're in one of these, good old boy towns where your family's been in power for 100 years, so even if you're not per se in office at that moment, your family's name is so entrenched with government and backdoor thievery that you got protection. You know,
Yeah.
some of these cities and towns and counties, it just blows my mind. You got half the family working for the government, and somehow I guess the people there living there think that's okay. Or I mean, maybe there's not a lot they can do to stop it. You know, people
Uh,
are like, oh, you can vote. Yeah, yeah. When you're in a small town like that, and they're their buddy's the one that's counting the votes. I mean,
right.
are you really? Are you
Well,
really going to
I'm of the opinion that our country is in this bit of a mess that we're in because we, the people, let it happen this way.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
we have nobody to blame but ourselves, and ain't nobody gonna fix it but us.
That's right. That's
So
it.
unless
100%.
each one of us, every time, look, we don't all have to be out there marching in the streets, but you know,
We need to be
don't
doing something.
when you get screwed, you got to fight. You got to fight, and you got to fix what's wrong, right? You can't just fight to say something's wrong.
Right.
So
No, that's absolutely 100%. And again, this stuff needs to be done proactively, not reactively, right? That's why I tell people. I said the time to learn the law is not when you get arrested.
no,
It's not when you're 2 weeks away from going to court. That's not the time to learn the law.
you
The
know,
time to learn the law is now.
one thing I love about what you do, and I've taken from you, and I'm starting to see it a little bit more, but it's like knowing it's not time to learn the ID law when you get pulled over,
Right.
right? And if you're going to tell the cop you don't need to have you're not required to give him ID, you better be able to back it up. And I'm not Rogue Nation. I'm not DirectD. I'm not San Joaquin, Lackluster, any of these guys. I can't spit it out. But what I do have is I got the law written on my sun visor of my car. So if there's any question, I'm not going to argue the law. I'm going to read it right there. Just the way it works.
Yep. And with the cell phones, I mean, we have every bit of information that we need at our hand.
Let me
So
let me show you something. I have this on my phone, and I have it on my every device I have. So all I do, I press a button. You see it?
okay, yeah.
That just got my top 10 Arizona laws already here. I keep the laws with me everywhere I go. Everywhere I go.
There you go.
I'm not going to argue the law with a cop. I'm just
Right.
going to read it to him.
Exactly. Exactly. Or even if you have it on a printout, give it to him as a printout. So that he can read. Although, again, most of the times they don't want to read. So you're iffy there. Oh, you got it laminated and ready to go.
I keep them in my car.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, you know what? Piss poor planning promotes poor performance,
Right.
and that goes for every aspect of your life, down from your
Mm-hmm.
marriage to your job to your interactions that you have with other citizens. And again, it is our fault that we are where we are because we allowed this to happen. We allowed ourselves to be lulled into this sense of, oh, well, the government will take care of that stuff.
Right.
All I need to worry about is going to work and watching my TV soap operas. That's all I need to worry about.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so, I mean, again, um, even though we've had this right to watch our government for over 200 years, even without cameras, nobody has ever taken it seriously because
Mm.
there were institutions in place to do that, like the media and there's government auditors and inspector generals and all these other cool agencies that will take care of that for us.
Yeah. Well, my real hope is that right now our country is kind of experiencing a First Amendment Rosa Parks moment, if you will. And what I mean by that is that, I mean, everybody, I think without exception, thinks it's absolutely ludicrous that black people would have to sit at the back of the bus, right? I think and hope in another 10 years 15 years, people are going to think it's absolutely ludicrous that people thought it was crazy to walk around with cameras and film government, you know? So my hope is that we're kind of having this constitutional Rosa Parks moment in our country, where it's just kind of an awakening to say, we're being ridiculous, people.
Right, right. Not only are we being ridiculous, but there doesn't need to be this kind of reaction to
Right.
people recording. It while there are issues or concerns about people, that act crazy and do crazy things. I mean, I walked into a water department in Tampa, sanitation department or whatever. It's just a little building, and they had like a not a fire extinguisher, but a fire hydrant inside that was cut in half, and you could see it. And
Mhm.
the whole place deal with sanitation. And I walked in, and the guy says, "Oh, well, you're not allowed to record here." I said, "No, no, I'm fine." It's no, with everything going on, and you could be casing us to rob us. And I'm like, "How many times has this building ever been robbed?" Well, none. Okay. And how many times has somebody come in here threatening you folks, or trying to do you harm? Well, that's never happened. Okay, so why do you immediately go to the worst, to the extreme of what could possibly happen that's never ever happened, and say that's what possibly could be going
Right.
on?
Right.
You know?
I got news for people like that. What? Osama bin Laden didn't win the war.
Yeah.
It's that easy. See something, say something that's just gotten out of control. And
Right.
there's that
Well,
that
that plays on people's natural tendency to be busybodies,
right.
right? Like, this is historically, sound fact is that people are busybodies. They like to interject themselves into other people's lives. People whose lives are in ruin, right? Like
Yeah.
some of the ghettoest trash people out there, all they do is sit there and talk about other people's lives, and
Mhm.
how they're not doing it right and doing it in this. And we see it in the troll community. That's all these people do. They sit around and they talk about what George is doing with his life, and does
Mhm.
George have a job, and is George treating
Right.
his wife and kids okay, and all this other stuff. But what they don't understand is George is doing legal activity. And just because I'm doing, something that you don't per se like, like I didn't, care for the Westboro Baptist Church when they were going out protesting funerals. I didn't
Right.
care for that shit. But I never went on the internet and was like hunting them down, and
No.
pulling their criminal records, and following them on their social media pages, and hounding them and saying, "Oh, you're a terrible person. Well,
Because
you
that
need free
feeds the
time."
beast is what it all it does is feeds them.
Yeah.
It's like government with the 1A community. That their emotional reaction just feeds the cause.
It does. It does. And the fact that they violate people on a regular basis just means that, I mean, we're always going to have support. I mean, we're always going to have support,
Always.
because every day more supporters are made. The government cannot help itself. It just
Activists aren't
constantly
born, they're
churns.
created, right?
Right. They automatically just churn out people that want the information and the knowledge that we have on how to deal with government. Every day, literally every
Yeah.
day, I'm contacted by people that say, "Oh, my son was violated," or I was unlawfully arrested, or this all this kind of stuff goes on. I bring a lot of the stories to the folks on my channel, but I mean, I've got a pile of them that are waiting
Mhm.
to be done, and made and stuff, and going about it. So yeah, every day. And my hope is that one day is that none of that happens. I don't get any emails, because at the moment they tried to violate their rights, that citizen stepped up and said, "Look, we're not having any of that." You know what I mean? And if we do, I'll handle it myself, right?
Mhm.
I don't need no lawyer, because I know the elements of the crime. I know
Right.
there's no way you can produce these elements of the crime, and plus I have everything on video. So, in my lawsuits, it makes it really easy because I tell the judge, I said, listen, I said, there's no facts that need to be assumed in this case, right? Everything is on video from
Right.
start to finish. So it's not a he said, she said, oh, well, that fact's in dispute. How is that fact in dispute? You see it with your own eyes, right?
Right.
So, again, evidence is going to be our best friend going against the government. And when you have such overwhelming evidence that they just can't deny it, then it's going to, result in a better outcome for whoever took that video, you know?
Right. Right. And I keep an app on my phone. That's what I recorded that. Are you familiar with Quick Video Recorder?
No, but
Okay.
there's a lot of apps out there. I have one that's called Background Recorder app that,
Yeah, yeah. And mine, on the one that I have, let's see, you can, it's not focusing, but
okay.
the widgets you can set up on your home screen and
Mhm.
you can change the widget. And okay, it's recording right now. The only way I can go to any of my apps, I can use my phone, I can do whatever I want, it'll whatever. But the only indication it's recording is the green dot right over here.
Okay.
And that's how I record all my interactions. I get why people don't feel comfortable doing this to a cop, right? I mean,
Right.
for me, that's uncomfortable. And I film people for a living. I do it 10 hours a day. I'm in my car with a video camera filming people. But that makes me uncomfortable. I get,
Right.
So I use my hidden video recorder app. I'm going to document everything anyway, but then he doesn't know I'm recording. I know I'm recording. I can do that in Arizona. I'm a one-party, check your laws, people. I'm a one-party state in Arizona. But you're recording government. As long as you're recording government, you're fine. But there's apps out there people can get. There's ways to record government and document interaction without holding up a camera to somebody's face. Because I get that
Absolutely.
it's not always comfortable.
Right. Even if you're just recording audio, because let's be honest, most of the violations are going to be audio related.
Right.
But if they go hands on or whatever, you're still going to catch that interaction audio
Yeah. Something.
on your
Yeah.
audio, right? So, one of the things I like to do is I have a USB that's a recorder, and I can slip it right into the inside band of my hat,
Nice.
right? And that we're record for 8 hours, and I can just pop that bad boy up there, turn it on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to detect, and I get 8 hours of audio recording out of
I
that.
recommend hidden cameras are so cheap now. I mean, you can get a little hidden pen camera for $20-$30 on Amazon. I mean, it may not be great quality, but to have a device recording that they don't know about, I mean, that is insanely valuable.
No, too much so.
Yeah. I mean, keep one in your pocket and keep one in your car,
Right.
But yeah, a hidden camera, you can get them on Amazon. They're super cheap. Pen, a watch, USB.
Yeah, they've got some
keyfob
really nice
remote.
watches. Yeah, they've
Yeah.
got some nice watches that record, or the Apple Watch
Yeah.
can record audio as well. So,
But to have a device now that is concealable it's inexpensive and it's invaluable if you have the opportunity to use it.
right. And again, like I said, if you're not worried about it, just if you got your phone or anything else, you use that as well. Again,
Whatever you got, document it.
yeah, depending on your comfort level,
Right.
'cause like you said,
Exactly.
it can be nervous
It is.
to record somebody, like you said, having the camera up or whatever. So turn your phone on, keep the recorder on, put it down by your side. Just
Mhm.
know where it's facing. Try to get some interaction in there that way. But yeah, this is the important part of it. because again, it's all down to he said, she said, and when it goes to court, the government automatically has a advantage in that the judge is naturally going to believe the worker, the state employee over the citizen. It's just the way the law works. They call it a presumption, and it's just the way the law works. You know, the government, the court system presumes that the people that work for the government are going to be truthful and
Hmm.
working in the government's best interest and all that other stuff. So you're already going against the fact that you're lying, right? Because that's the way the court sees it right off the bat,
Yeah.
without you saying a word. As soon as that case hits that judge's desk, you're lying, the government's telling the truth. Now you have to battle that out.
Unless there's evidence,
Unless
unless there's
there's a
video,
Yep,
video or audio evidence, you're screwed.
yep. Yeah, I mean, there's been so many stories I've heard over the years, and even before I started auditing, about how they didn't have no evidence, and the government
And
decided against them.
and again, it goes kind of back to the original topic of the video was you can have all the evidence in the world, but unless you know how to organize it in a way that is understandable for the courts and easy for the courts, I can't stress that bit enough. Easy for the courts and the police or whoever's going to process those documents. You have to make it easy for them. You can't make them do all the work. I know that's what they get paid for. I know that's what we want them to do. They're not going to do it. You have to do the legwork to save your freedom. They're not going to do it. They
Right.
want to keep your freedom.
So what else do we got today? I know you said you had some questions on.
Okay, so this is the reason I really reached out to you, and all right. So I get assaulted by Officer Borbeck, right? And I didn't sue, and I'm fine with that. That wasn't what it was about for me, and I took care of business. Okay, but it really got my juices thinking that if I were going to pursue legal action in that case, a couple of things came into mind. Now, even though I'm a private investigator, 30 years, I've dealt with government and all that kind of stuff, I don't know the legal system. So I went out and I searched. I'd heard somewhere about this process, but Rogue, what's the process to suing government? What is the very first thing I have to do? And do I need an attorney for it? So I had a bunch of questions, and I just want to ask you some stupid questions about how to get that process started and what it takes.
Well, the first part again is going to be finding out if your rights were violated and understanding that. Now, when you said an assault necessarily isn't a violation of your rights. It is a criminal violation, which you can sue in state court for a tort of assault, right? You could sue them in a state court for a tort, but not a civil rights violation. But let's say, for example, you were filming and the officer said, "Oh, stop filming, stop filming. You can't film here, you can't record here." And then he moves to assault you because you won't put the camera away. Now you're talking a civil rights violation because his actions in assaulting you was in retaliation for you exercising your First Amendment right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a perfect example of that. In my case in Dothan with the sheriff, he pulled up, he detained us on the side of the road, and they ended up IDing us later. But I filed a First Amendment retaliation claim against him because he made it clear in the video that the only reason that he was detaining me was because we were filming government buildings, and to him that might have been illegal. So we can trace back his whole thinking and find that the only reason that he was stopping us that day was because of the fact that we were exercising our First Amendment right. No other reason. So it's hard for them to escape that, right? You,
Right.
you can't be like, well, I just stopped him because I thought his shoes were suspicious. well, I've got you on video saying 15 times how we were in government buildings and we were recording and you don't know
Right.
it's legal, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Again, real quick, Rogue. But again, we talked about words are important in the complaint part of this video.
Mhm.
That interaction with Rogue, those words that Rogue uses during that interaction are key on the back end. Okay.
Absolutely. And no, absolutely. You're 100% right. When you're going to do an audit and when the officers show up, that's your deposition right there. Right there and
Mhm.
then. That is the time for you to ask those questions that when they answer on video and you play them in the court, that's going to come out in your favor, right? Another interaction I had in Mobile, where the officer had, um, asked me for my social security number. And I asked him, I said, is that a policy of your department? Okay. Because if it's a policy of the department that the officer is using to violate your rights, then that opens up that office, right? That
Mhm.
opens up that municipality, that police department, for them to be sued. Because in most instances, you can't sue like the cop's boss or the chief of police or the police department, right? If some cop pulls you over, slaps you around, and takes your camera, he did that himself, right? There's no way
Yeah.
that you
Okay.
can be
So
like,
that was one of my questions was who can I sue?
you can sue the people that violate your rights only, right? So let's
So
say
I can't sue. I can't sue necessarily. I can sue the officer. I can sue the city, right?
if the city has a policy that the officer was following that made him violate your rights, you can't just sue the city just because the officer works for the city. You see what I'm
Okay.
saying? It doesn't work that way. That'd be like, me suing you because your son killed my chicken.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We're not responsible a lot of times for what people do that may be connected to us or underneath of us at work, unless we can show that his actions resulted from something the bosses told him, right?
Right.
So if the bosses are in there saying, "Hey, you guys see anybody out there filming, you know, bust them, arrest them," then we could sue their bosses because the cop was arresting us because of his boss, right? Telling
Okay.
him to do that. And it's very hard to get that kind of evidence, right? So there's two ways that you can sue the city, and that is through a policy or through a custom, right? So it doesn't have to be a policy that's written down. It can be just a custom that they've always done,
Pattern of
like,
practice.
right, like, gosh, who said it? In the Pink Camera Magic depositions, the officer in that case told the lawyer, he goes, "Well, somebody told me after 9/11,
Mhm.
and that's a custom, right? He's done
Right.
that all these years, even though there's not a policy,
Those are some great depositions, by the way.
right? There's a custom of that going on, so that's when we can include that kind of stuff. But say for example, like, okay, in that Dothan incident with the sheriff, there were 10 cops surrounding us, but I only sued 2, right? A lot of people are like, "Oh, you should sue them all." Well, you can. You can put their name on a lawsuit, but then when it comes time to defend that lawsuit, and they say, "Well, how did this officer right here specifically violate your rights?"
Going back to what we talked about earlier. Gotta be
Right.
very specific.
Yeah, and you're like, "Well, he was standing around while these other officers violated my rights." So, I mean, maybe you can get him on like a sort of like a negligence or failure to intervene type deal.
It's a high hurdle.
Right, exactly. So I like the keep it simple, stupid method always. And
Always.
that is, as few as defendants as possible, and try to get them to say what they don't want to say, or their lawyer would tell them not to say, come time for court. Um, and that's pretty much why I talk with officers, is to try to, same reason they talk to me, is to try to get them to say something or put themselves in a position that they shouldn't be in.
One of the, I think the best questions. I think I've heard you say it, but one of the best questions when doing an audit that I don't hear asked enough is, what specifically about my conduct was disruptive? Right?
Or suspicious.
or suspicious, right? And don't use the word of the crime. So don't use was I being like, okay, what about my conduct specifically was disruptive, right? Because disrupting the peace is a crime that has elements, right? So did somebody say I threatened somebody? You can work out the elements of the crime. So the only thing about my conduct was the camera.
Yep.
And now well, he didn't do anything that in the elements of disrupting the peace. So the only reason we're kicking him out is for the camera. And the cop just admitted to all of that because we chose our words very carefully.
Absolutely. Yeah. That when you're in the audit and you're talking and you've got the camera rolling, and the words you say could either help seal your lawsuit, or it could totally dismiss your lawsuit. So you got to be careful as far as that goes. But you also have to be careful, like you said, in everything you do. A lot of these guys now are getting convicted, um, and myself included, not just because of corrupt court, but because of our actions, right? Because our actions could be seen by the general public as being confrontational or such. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
everybody that's in the auditing game has to evaluate why they're doing what they're doing. Is it for entertainment? Like, we obviously know some auditors are out there just doing it for entertainment, right? They don't file lawsuits, they don't file complaints,
Right.
and basically all they do is go around and you know capture confrontations and get paid for doing that. But um, for those of us that want to make change, we have to do it the right way. I point back to Jeff Gray so many times, right? Let's look at his recent videos in Mississippi. Jeff didn't get arrested, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
need to,
Right.
and he got everything that he needed on video. Um, hold on. Excuse me. Not only to sue, but to create change even before then, right? Because the,
Mm-hmm.
the citizens are upset. Now they've got the news involved. Now the mayors know about it, and everything's
One
going
view at a
up.
time.
That's it. And he does it masterfully. And um,
I can't do auditing for a couple of reasons, but the big one is I don't have the temperament. I couldn't keep cool. I would get arrested. I would just lose my absolute shit.
and that that works the same way for a lot of people. You know, I can hold stuff down with the thought of what will happen in the future, right? So I'm unless you like punch me in the face, I'm pretty rock solid. You know what I mean? And I attest that to when I was younger. Like I said, I was in trouble. I ended up going to prison when I was 18. I actually volunteered to go to prison. They offered me house arrest and probation, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to go for that. Just send me to prison, right? I'm always been like a hands-on kind of guy. Like, so if I want to learn something, put me in
Crazy.
there and I'll learn, right? So, you hear all about prison and stuff. And I was 18. My best friend didn't get an opportunity to make that choice. They automatically sent him to prison. He was a year younger than me. He was 17. And we were definitely rowdy kids. And I told him, I said, I don't want to do house arrest. I want to, probation, none of that stuff. Just go ahead and send me to prison. And one of the things I learned in prison is that a lot of people will talk a lot of trash, and a lot of people will get up in your face spraying stuff like honky this or whitey that, or this or that, or whatever it may be. But I learned in there, and what I told them was, you can say anything you want to say, you can do anything you want to do, just don't put your hands on me. And that's how I made it through prison. I told them straight
Hmm.
up, you can yell, you can curse all day long, you can say whatever you want about my mama, you know, that it's just gonna roll off me, right? Because I'm
Right.
I'm in here, I messed up, I'm gonna pay my debt to society, and I'm gonna get on with my life, and I'm not gonna be involved in your petty antics in order to try to, trip me up or to get me to do the wrong thing, so that way my time's extended or anything like that. And my first time through, I spent very little time in prison, and then of course they violated me because it was an election year and they needed to look tough on crime, so they put me back in for a couple more months, and I finished out my sentence. And until I started auditing, I'd been, pretty much crime free, couple tickets, whatever. But yeah, one of the most important things I learned in there is that, people will do a lot to try to get you to react. And if you just let that stuff roll off you, I mean, you're always going to come out on top. And that's the way I take it with auditing. You can, like that deputy chief, that deputy chief in Barnville, South Carolina. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to search your car. Go right ahead." You know what I mean? And I told people when I first began, but I think it's important for people to know that part of my mindset when I go out is that if I find a tyrant, I want to let him, experience his dreams of tyranny. You know what I mean? Like, whatever he wants to do tyrannical wise, I want to allow him to do that to me.
And the more I really learn from smart, calm, wise people like yourself, there's so much value in that. Yes, you can make a great, crazy video that's going to go viral and do all that, but the long-term value, I mean, that's just a couple of views. Long-term value in just letting somebody, giving them the rope and being able to showcase it. I mean, it's an art.
It really is. When I first started, I saw, like, okay, we'll take High Desert Community Watch, for example. That guy, he would stand out on the side of the road and he would yell and curse at cops whenever they'd come up to him. And people were like, "Oh yeah," and I thought to myself, is this really creating any change? I mean, is this cop gonna leave that interaction and 2 weeks later not violate another citizen because, oh, you know what? I ran into that one guy, he knew his rights and he cursed at me, so I better not violate any citizen's rights.
Right.
And it just didn't seem to do anything, right? I mean, it made for great videos, right? Like, kick rocks and you're dismissed and F this and F that. And,
Right.
People living vicariously through him, cussing out the cops and all that. And that's all great. But did it, progress to anything to where, like, now we can go into buildings? I don't think I ever saw that guy in a building.
Right.
So
When I first came into watching the videos, he was one of the first guys that, stumbled into my feed, and I started getting into it. But where I really saw the value in what was going on was when I stumbled onto Philip Turner, Batusa. And man, he set the bar for me. And, then I found Jeff Gray, and, I really started to find people that these are the guys that I really want to watch and support and learn from.
right, and it's just like anything else. I mean, people support who they're going to support, and that's where the success level comes in at. Internet's the same way. It's a popularity contest. People always ask me, Rogue, why don't you have 100 or 200,000 subscribers by now? I said, because I'm not looking for popularity.
Right.
I'm cultivating my subscribers to be people that, first of all, I'd want to hang out with in real life, but two, that they understand that this isn't some kind of a game. This isn't entertainment.
Right.
I find it amazing that people are entertained by my videos, but my videos are not entertaining videos. I don't go out there to be, Laurel and Hardy.
Right.
I go out there for a purpose, and I, when I first started, I told people, I said, listen, and at the time I started, nobody was doing it. There was this huge myth that you had to get arrested in order to, stand up for your rights and all this other stuff. And I told people, I said, look, so that ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen with me. I said, I got responsibilities. I take care of a family. And I just don't feel that, getting arrested, plays into, my activism.
I could
And
lose my government permission slip to work as a PI. I ain't gonna do that.
right. So, I mean, over the years now, and it's taken a while, but people have seen, and the people that have stuck with me, they've seen the changes that I've made. Because, like I said, when I started, nobody did revisits. I don't
Hmm.
think Jeff Gray had done a revisit when I started. None of these people had done revisits when I started doing auditing. And I said, listen, this is the way it's got to move forward. If we want to show people that what we're doing has an effect and that our jobs are done, we need to go back to these places and make
Yeah,
sure that they
I think
learn.
it's so important that we see that.
Right,
So,
right, right. And yeah, another thing was people would always be like, when the cops would come and they'd be like, "Oh, you're allowed to go in there." People would always like, "Well, why don't you go in for a victory lap?" I said, "Listen," I said, "when the incident is fresh in their mind and the cops are right there to back you up, of course you're going to go in and do a victory lap, right? That's easy.
yeah,
That's easy. Okay? But
right.
go ahead and leave. Wait for 6 months till most people forgot about it, and then go back in again. And you'll
Hmm.
see if there's been actual change. Because if there's been actual change, they would have notified employees. Employees would know now that it's legal to record in the building, and that training would stick with them. So 6 months down the road, a year down the road, when you go back and they don't mess with you, then you could say, I've done something. I've
Right.
changed the way these people have interacted now with people that come in with cameras.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I feel that way, and that's why I've got more revisits than any other auditor and a lot of auditors combined, because I feel that that's such an important part. And again, I'm not out for entertainment, right?
Well, it's part of the, in my mind, it's part of the process, really, right? So it's like filing a complaint, and not following through on it. What's the point, right?
Exactly, exactly. Just filing a complaint, giving it to them, and then just like not even calling to see if they reached a conclusion.
What's the point,
Right,
right?
right.
So, all right, Rogue. Well, I got to get going here pretty soon. So I want to thank you uh, for all your information, and that was awesome. I'd love to do this again sometime. Just want to chat or talk about videos or whatever. I'd love to do it again. It was cool.
I mean, you got my number and my email, so I don't want to say I'm always available, but I'm always available. you
Likewise,
know,
brother.
yeah, it might take me a minute or two, or it might take a couple days to work it out, but I'm always
Hey,
available for people
awesome,
to
awesome, awesome,
talk
awesome.
with. So yes, thank you very much, sir. It's been a pleasure. Again, I appreciate any knowledge. We can all learn from each other. That's the important part.
Absolutely.
I think that everybody needs to understand. Even the trolls. Like I tell people, everybody has something to teach somebody else if only we take the time to listen. And
Even if it's understanding a different perspective.
that's it. That's it. Or even if it's something that you don't even want to learn. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Like people have stuff that they could teach you. I mean, we're not, might not be experts in everything, but we put our heads together, we can figure shit out. I mean, that's how we've come along as a society for so long. Is not one person was doing it. Not one person put a man on the moon. Not one person, you know, cured a disease. It's always been a team of people that have been working on the issue.
Somebody did this, showed this to me years and years ago, and it always sat with me. Inside the circle represents everything you know. The line on the outside of the circle represents everything you don't know. What just happened? Everything you don't know just got a whole lot more, didn't it?
Yep,
So every time your circle gets a little bit bigger with knowledge, that just means there's a whole lot more that you don't know.
that's it. That's
And
it.
that's always stuck with me. So just keep down that road learning, people.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, like on my bookshelves, this is my daughter's bookshelves back there, but on my bookshelves, when I finish a book, I take it down from the shelf, right? So my bookshelves are completely full of books that I haven't read. And the reason I do that is because it's a visual reminder to me of everything that I don't know, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've got books and books, piled in buckets and stuff in my shed that I've read, and maybe I need to reference here and there. But on my bookshelves are books that I haven't read because I look at them, I say, you know what, I'm missing information, and then I'll go and I'll take a book out and I'll look through it, but somebody told me that one time, and it really stuck with me that that that's how he keeps himself humble, I guess you could say, was
Mhm.
by surrounding himself with stuff that he realized he didn't know.
Right. Oh
Like,
my. Oh my. I get so much smarter every day.
yeah, man.
It's amazing.
Yep.
All right,
So,
my man. Hey, all viewers, be good humans out there. Don't be a dick. So I close out all my videos. Rogue, you're awesome, brother. Thank you. You're an awesome human.
thank you,
So
man.
thanks for what you
Thanks
do.
for spending time with me this morning, man.
Hey, no problem. Likewise, brother. I'll talk to you later.
You got it, sir.
All right, man.
All right. Hey guys, Rogue Nation here with you. We just got done watching the discussion that me and just a guy having fun had. I wanted to show you just a little bit of the interaction that he had that he ended up filing a complaint on. We're just going to watch a little snippet. I'll leave the link for you guys in the description. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put up some screenshots of his complaint, how he did his complaint. Now, I'm only going to put each screenshot up. There's like 13 of them. I'm only going to put them up for a couple of seconds each, so you'll have to pause to read it. And if any of you want the full complaint, just go ahead and email me, and I'll email you a copy of it. Alright, so let's go ahead and start here. This is at the beginning.
Press 2.
I'm calling my insurance company right now for the tow.
Okay, well, whoever gets first is going to
No, I'm going to have my insurance company tow it. I appreciate it.
listening to the calling.
Okay, sir, you will address me
By
with
the
the
law.
respect of the citizen that you serve.
I'll
Okay,
give
my son has just been in an
You're
accident.
going to calm down. You're going to calm down right now.
No, I'm not
You're going to calm down. Back off 3 feet. Back off
This
3
is
feet.
not going to
Back
be an
off
ego
3
thing.
feet. Back off.
You just assaulted me. You just assaulted me.
No, I told you to back
You
off 3
just
times.
assaulted
You're
me.
not going to talk to me like that
Hey,
with an aggressive
don't
manner.
touch him.
Step back.
don't touch him.
Stop it. Stop it.
Stop with the
Don't touch
attitude.
it.
Stop
Give
it.
me
Sergeant,
your
now.
supervisor.
Where are you driving?
Supervisor,
Supervisor.
now.
You're listening to me.
Supervisor, now.
Supervisor.
Supervisor.
Lower your tone of voice.
Son, I got this. Tyler, I got it. Got it. Put. Tyler, get in the car.
Civilized.
Get in the car.
And willing
Or
to
go.
communicate. We will.
I'm willing to. I'm willing to. When you're ready to treat me like the citizen that you serve, you let me know. Until then, get me your supervisor. Get me your supervisor.
And the whole video was a lot longer than what he's got clipped up here. You'll see it in the complaint, how he goes, timestamp by timestamp, and then he accesses their policies, and he tells them, hey, at this time he violated this policy right here. It's really a great system. I was glad to be able to talk with him, because I think moving forward, this is probably going to be how I file my complaints as well. So thanks again to Just a Guy Having Fun for coming on and talking with me a little bit about it. I appreciate his knowledge in the fields that he's worked, and as always, he's a great ally in the fight for freedom and fight for rights. So if you guys haven't seen this video, definitely go ahead and check it out. It's on his channel. Go ahead and subscribe. Tell him I sent you, and we'll see you guys again. All right, thanks guys.